Hi everyone, today's day 21 of the Push-Up 22 Challenge, and today I'd like to share a little more of the story of the Boys of Bravo Battery. As we've talked about before, most soldiers come home from war, but there are some who didn't. We've talked about Ron Wood and Michael Allred as two that didn't. We've talked about the impact of the invisible wounds of war, like with Sheldon Lovelace yesterday. But I'd like to tell you a little more about the journey that the Boys of Bravo Battery went through in their trip to Iraq. We were notified on Leap Year Day, February 29th of 2004. We got the call that we were going to be deployed, and then we actually started our deployment in July of very end of June of 2004. We spent a few months at Fort Bliss, Texas, living in the desert, living in tents, some big tents, some small tents, and going through our training. Then we transitioned into Fort Polk, Louisiana, where we put all that training together in an exercise with our entire brigade, and discovered just how much we still had to learn. The training was all good, and it really brought us all together as a unit, especially where we had a lot of new guys that joined us for the deployment that came from other National Guard units, particularly from here in Utah. And then the very end of November, we arrived in the Middle East. We staged in Kuwait for a couple weeks as we matched up with our equipment, our vehicles, and worked on getting some, at that stage of the game, some of the slab together, up-armored Humvees, where literally mechanics were welding metal plates onto the doors and onto the undercarriage of what was the standard Humvee at that time, to try to give us a little bit of protection from the IEDs. We crossed the berm into Iraq mid-December, and we started out in a place called Adalulia. I'm not saying it quite right, but Adalulia, it's in the Samarra region, just north of Baghdad. Within just a few days, we got our first real taste of what war could be like, where we had our first two casualties, in this case meaning two soldiers that were wounded when an RPG, it's a rocket-propelled grenade, hit their Humvee, and later on those two soldiers, and I'm sharing a picture with you, Joe Aker and Gage Polson, were awarded their Purple Heart. That first area we were in there was to help ramp up security for the first ever free elections in Iraq, which I believe occurred like on January 30th, 31st, February 1st, right in that time period. And it was so cool to be a part of that, to help plan out the security, which was part of what I had the opportunity to do, and do my little teeny part of it. And to see the purple fingers, all the Iraqis, that's how they validated that they had voted, and also to protect the voting process so people didn't vote over and over. They'd get a purple stamp on their finger, and they were proud to be able to be a part of that. After that, we transitioned, and our unit split into two different pieces. Half went up to a place called Solomania, which was, by Iraqi standards, was one of the most modern cities in Iraq. Very western, college town, fast food restaurants, and then another part of our unit, which is the part I was with, we went to a little town called Dibus, right on the Little Zob River. And then we ran an operation out of there, and we were split as a unit for a couple of months, and then we came together at the end of May of 2005 we are now in. And one of the highlights for me was in that FOB Dibus there. We turned that base, FOB FOB means Forward Operating Base. We turned it over to the Iraqi Army, and we did a process called a TOA, a Transfer of Authority. And it was a very dignified ceremony where Iraqi military leaders and police leaders and Iraqi dignitaries participated in this transfer of authority. And two of the highlights for me was being able to participate in that ceremony a little bit, and then to be able to get some pictures, which is one of the jobs I had over there, was to take pictures. And I'm sharing two of those with you. One of Iraqi imam, who was their religious leader, who prayed at the ceremony, and their prayer is kind of a chanting. But I had a chance to get a picture of him before, and he's meditating or he's praying, and one of the most beautiful men I've ever seen, very dignified, very handsome, very humble man. And I've got a picture of an Iraqi soldier who is saluting, different than we salute, but he is saluting as his flag is raised. The Iraqi flag is raised above that base. And I was touched by the honor and respect that he had for his flag, just same honor and respect that we have for our flag. It was at that same operation that I took the picture of Ron Wood that I shared with you before, where he is standing security. And that's, as far as I know, well, that's the last picture that I got of Ron before he was killed just a few weeks later. So at the end of May, I think it's May 30th, actually, we the two parts of our unit, we all came back together in Kirkuk, the city of Kirkuk, and which is up in the Kurdish region. And we ran operations out of there for a few weeks, and it was during those operations when Ron was killed by a massive IED blast, and Eric Lund and Christopher Olson were wounded in that same attack. All three of them were in the same Humvee. And then I don't remember the date for sure. We transferred or transitioned down to a place called Tikrit, and we ran operations out of there for the last few months. We lived in a tent at that time period, and one of the things that really stuck in my mind is our tent was right next to the helipad for the medevac helipad, and there was only one reason a chopper landed there. It's because someone was not having a good day. Someone was hurt, and that medevac chopper was coming in to bring him in or was taking him out to somewhere else. And we heard that chopper a lot, too much. And so the sound of those chopper blades will always stay with me. It's one of the memories that I have. One of the the highlights for me was that I got to know some of our Iraqi interpreters. They were so important to us to help us communicate with the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police force, which we helped to train, and of course the Iraqi people when we went out to meet with them. There's four of them in particular that I got to know: Imad, Ayad, Iraz, and Jamie. Four good guys. Imad particularly, he and I became really close friends. We had great discussions about life, about faith, about cultures, about family, and it's an honor for he and I. We have maintained friends ever since then, and we keep in touch. We've talked on the phone a couple of times over the last 15, 16 years, and it's been good. He's a good friend. He's a good man. He's married. He's got a beautiful child now, and I'm honored to be his friend. One thing that's important to remember about them, these Iraqi interpreters, they served at a great risk to themselves and to their families, because they believed in a cause. They believed in this thing called freedom and liberty, and a concept that was still really vague maybe, but they had hope. They had hope that they could do their part to make a difference, and I believe they did. Even with the turmoil that Iraq is still going through right now, and I worry about my friends over there because they live amongst it. Imad and I talk, and he's safe, but it's not the same carefree life that, for the most part, that we enjoy. And so then we wrapped up our mission in Iraq the end of middle part of November. We transitioned home, spent a week at Fort Lewis, Washington, where we redeployed to come home, and then on November 18th, I was back home. And homecomings are nice. And I'm grateful for the boys of Bravo Battery. It was an honor to be able to serve with them. I served under Captain Darcy Burt and Lieutenant Eric Wiedmeyer, along with First Sergeant Kevin Martinez and another acting First Sergeant Rick Harley. Four-man that along with the others, but they were our leaders. They led us well. They did a phenomenal job of taking care of us and leading us and acting in faith, and I was honored to serve with them. Honored to call them brothers, band of brothers. That's what we are. And so thanks for letting me share a little bit about the story of the boys of Bravo Battery. You can read much more about it that I've posted. And thanks for sticking with me as I continue with the Push-Up Challenge 22. So here we go with the day number 21. And here's lucky number 13. And one more for good measure. Thanks, my friends. Thanks again for letting me share. Enjoy the reading. You're welcome to share this one. As you are with all of them, you're welcome to share it. And remember, talking about it makes a difference in bringing awareness and saving lives. So take care. Thanks for letting me share, and God bless.